Rightio, welcome back to the channel. Today's my entry for the Builders Challenge Season 14, run by Makers Central, which is a US or Canadian group of makers that run these challenges periodically throughout the year. The challenge was to build an entry hall table, and they give plans for these projects, and you've got three categories if you want to build off the plans, try and mix it up a little bit, or go full expert and do something crazy. I'm trying to find the medium here, so I've gone with a small wall hanging cabinet with two doors, similar to the plans, and I'm using some new Guinea Rosewood for that. And I'm going to try and incorporate my dovetails, which I'm marking out right here, and I've been practicing those the last few months, and I'm really going to put it to the test with this build here. With these maker challenges, they only give you 3 weeks from the day they give you the plans to the submission date, so it was working really quickly here. But there was a lot of time and effort put into it, and I really want to show in this video how long some of these processes actually take to do. So a lot of the video will be in real time, some of it will be sped up, but I really want to give people the insight into how long some of these dovetail processes and even the veneering processes I did take in real time. Using a marking gauge when doing the dovetails is a must, I reckon, because you can just set the depth of the marking gauge to your thickness and replicate that dimension all the way around every joint, every corner on your piece. And you don't even have to think you'll use a ruler, which saves a lot of time. These dovetails, I'm going for a wider dovetail than what I've done in the past. I've kind of noticed through my research and watching other YouTubers and makers making their dovetails, going for that wider tail and the smaller pins. I like that look. It looks a lot classier than the evenly spaced dovetails that you see in maybe drawers and things. This will give it a nice display and a nice feature to the design of the box. When marking out the dovetails, I like using a knife because it scores in the marking, and it makes a great channel for your chisel to fit in when you're ready to start chiseling, and also for the saw as well. So use a sharp knife, get yourself a stabby McStab face from 2x4 if you can, but definitely use something sharp and be careful. Remember when I said be careful when using a sharp knife? Yeah. Quickly cleaned that up, finished it off, and you can see the crisp lines in that knife marking, which make cutting and chiseling a lot easier. Now, this Japanese dovetail saw I bought from TimberCon is one of the best purchases I've made hand tool wise. It's nice and straight. The kerf is like 0.3 of a mil. It's so thin and accurate, and I'm cutting through both pieces at once. I've clamped them up there, and the teeth are sharp. It's just, I can't get over how nice and easy these dovetails were to cut with a saw like this. If you've been following along on my Instagram, you'll see that I've been making my own dovetail markers / cutting guides, and I made some for the pink tools for the Super T pink project. I was a fan of it, and I got a bit of slack for actually using them as saw guides. People said they're not saw guides, they're just for marking out. But who cares? It does what it does. It didn't cost anything, made from scraps or made from wood. I didn't pay for them. And it did the trick to help me practice and get my saw cutting nice and straight. Because cutting that angle on those tails can be very tricky. But with this nice straight saw, I'm going freehand and I'm testing what I've been practicing. Since I started all this hand-cut joinery, real woodworking business, I've started getting into sharpening my chisels and getting a nice, shiny, sharp bevel on them. And it's really fun and actually therapeutic to do. Maybe one night out in the shed, just sharpening your chisels ready for a night or the next day of chiseling dovetails. You can set yourself up pretty easily with a double-sided whetstone and a honing guide. Like, it doesn't have to be a crazy $2,000 machine that you need to buy. Just something easy to sharpen and get that nice sharp bevel to get these straight dovetails. At this point in the dovetail process, I see a lot of people using coping saws to hog out a lot of that excess where the pin's going to go. I've done it a few times. I don't necessarily like it. I get that it saves your chisel, maybe cuts a bit away, but I like scoring in the shoulder, I call it, of where the pins are going to get a nice straight line across the whole joint, and then paring it away by hand. I do start using a mallet to start when it gets down to the middle, and I flip it over and do it from both sides so that I should get a clean break in the center of the piece and no splitting out or blowing out on the faces, which is going to be ugly and obvious. I split my chiseling between two different chisels. I think it's a 12.5 and a 6mm chisel, and they get me through most of everything I need for this job anyway. I don't have anything thicker that would require a wider chisel. They're nothing special. I think they're just some cheap Stanleys I had. They were very rusted and blunt. I think I used to use them as paint tin openers and tin openers. And then I was like, stuff it, I'm going to sort this out. Bought myself a Waterstone, like I said, sharpened them. And now that paint tin opener is now one of the sharpest chisels I own. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't really used a mallet this whole time I've been doing the dovetails in this process. But after a while, your hands just get sore from scoring and from paring back. You just need to use something a bit stronger and heavier. And stay tuned for a future build, Scotty's Custom Grits Mallet Challenge. I'm getting on it. I'm going to take out Dana. So I'm marking out the tails here with the piece that's actually going to join into them. So I just trace those tails onto the end grain of where the pins are going to be and project those lines down with a tri-square. It means that each corner joint is going to be kind of custom fit to that tail that I've done, because who knows how good or bad my chiseling and sawing was. They're all going to be a little bit different. So this is just the cutting of one individual pin on 4 sides. So taking that into consideration, this footage in real time, and when I speed it up, how long these dovetails can take and how time consuming the whole process can be. Similar chiseling process to the tails. I score down the shoulder and then pare back the actual waist out using a mallet, flipping it over each time, making sure that I don't blow out the faces of the timber, and cleaning up that shoulder so the tails fit in nice and flush and we've got nice clean dovetails. This part's probably the most time consuming because the tails taper in or out. You don't want to go straight through. You actually got to chisel down on that angle of the tail. It's only at this point that you can tell if you've actually done a good job or not. So it's still a bit of finagling to do to try and get them to fit nicely and flush, no gaps, all that business. We want it to be nice and clean. And keep pointing a chisel at you, you idiot. Good one, mate. Woo! Woo! 1 down. 3 to go. Let's get on it. Easily the most satisfying part of doing these dovetails is watching it go in and there not being gaps on that shoulder in between the tails, except that little one there. But we sort that out later. Alright, dovetail's done. Let's get shit moving on. So routed in some trenches for 2 shells for some storage, using the hand trimmer, 12mm bits of New Guinea Rosewood going into these trenches here. Nothing too crazy. So this is the backing piece that's going to be on the back of the box. I didn't want the ugly plywood to show through, so I'm veneering some, whatever it is, something that's close to the New Guinea Rosewood. It's probably something hardwood veneer, with my own veneer press here with 2 big chunky blocks and a ton of clamps, and it did the trick. And I do this process a few times. You'll see it was one of the heaviest things that I've glued up, mainly because of the weight of the clamps. Right, all those components are ready. Time to get my paintbrush, glue, and a bunch of clamps and a bunch of headaches, because we know it all goes together without glue. Time to add glue and for nothing to work to plan. Yep, all the clamps go on, you check square, and then you take them all off because nothing is square and you got to fix it all up again. That's the fun of doing some box making with some hand cut joints, which probably aren't the best. So reclamp it. The second time always works the best. So apart from the dovetails, the thing I'm most excited about for this project is veneering the 2 doors on the front of this cabinet. I've gone for like this landscape design using 4 different veneers for each kind of layer in the landscape, the background and foreground and whatever the middle grounds are called. Each color is going to be a different layer. I drew this myself, took a few goes trying to get the right curvature and the lines to get the nice landscape look I was after, and it's coming together really nicely. If you got access to a laser cutter, it's an amazing tool to make templates and cool veneer designs as well. Give it a crack. Get that morning wake me up juice in, crack out the Manny Press 3000 and veneer this landscape down to the plywood doors. So once this is glued on, I'm going to rip it down the guts to create 2 vertical doors. Come on, big fella, don't drop it now. Good on ya, you earned that one. And that's about enough of that. Alright, still awake? Time to make the doors. So these are just 12 by 12 squares. Gonna miter the frames together and glue in the panels of the veneer. So these miters, cut them on the table saw to get them nice and accurate, and no joinery with them, just glue with the plywood veneer glued in. I probably should have cut the trench in before I cut them up into little unmanageable pieces. I made a sacrificial 0 clearance fence from some 3mm plywood, knocked up a little safety push stick that held the each frame piece into the fence, and I was able to cut the trenches actually quite safely. I didn't feel unsafe at all, even though it looks sketchy as hell. Okay, it actually is worse than what it looks like. It scared the crap out of me. But it actually wasn't too bad. Now cutting this thing up was the scariest part. You can see I've got the veneer on both sides, so no ugly plywood showing on the inside and outside of the door. And trimming it to size wasn't too bad, but the moment of truth was actually cutting it down the guts and hoping to God that all my measurements were right. Glue up was pretty smooth, just did the old tape on the miter trick, they held together because everything was millimeter perfect, and it's all fitting together nicely except when you drop it. What does every door need? Knobs. Had some 12 by 12 New Guinea Rosewood left over, chucked it on the lathe, turning it down into some nice, neat, modern style, tapered like knobs. And this was probably one of the smallest things I've turned on the lathe, and actually doing multiples. I've never really done things that I've had to match two things up exactly right. So I'm pretty happy with how close I got them to match together. It's probably not the right way of doing it end to end like that, but it works. So a few coats of spray lacquer on everything and attaching the hardware, the hinges, and I added some magnet catches onto the doors to hold them closed. I am really happy with how this turned out. The dovetails look awesome. It's really cool to see how all my practice over the last few months has paid off. Okay, really happy with how this guy has come out. The hero of the piece, I thought was going to be the dovetails. It's actually probably the veneer on front. I love the landscape design that I came up with and how it matches and flows between the two doors. The knobs that I turned myself, they got a little bit of taper to them, gives it that modern, classy look to it, I guess. And veneering the inside I thought was a stroke of genius. Nah, it was alright. It covered out that ugly plywood look on the inside, on the back piece, and on the doors as well. So that's really an awesome feature, I thought. I added magnets to the top here with some screws to hold it closed. Don't need a chain or anything like that. It's not gonna swing open. The magnet will keep it closed. And I've just used my standard butt hinges on the side here, just to hinge the door, I guess. Again, really happy with it. It was supposed to be an entryway cabinet, pretty big. I didn't have a use for that. I just want to be mounted onto a wall. You come home, put your keys in, put your wallet in, whatever other stuff you got, chuck it in, and hang it on the wall. So I don't know what else to do with this. If you've got any ideas what I should do with it, give it away, keep it, whatever, leave a comment down below. Follow along on all the socials, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It all helps. And until next time, I'll see you later.